Losing her was not the end. It was the beginning of the most real examination you will have with yourself. In a breakup, the most common mistake is to believe that the power lies in getting her back, when in reality, the true power lies in recovering yourself. It's not about writing to her, begging her, or trying to prove that you're worth it. It's about letting the silence, the calm, and your progress speak for you. As you rebuild yourself, she begins to remember who you were before you became so available. Stoicism does not teach you to hide pain, but to master it. It tells you feel, but do not kneel before what you feel. That is the key. Most lose control because they confuse love with dependence. They want her to come back to stop suffering, when what they really need is to return to themselves. The man who understands this does not seek revenge. He seeks balance, purpose, and self-respect. This process is not a performance or a strategy to impress. It is pure transformation. Every step, every day in silence, every limit you impose is a statement. I do not crumble, I evolve. And when that happens, she perceives it. Not by your words, but by your new energy. Because nothing attracts more than a man who no longer needs to attract. In the following lessons, you will learn how to accept what happened without victimhood, how to use silence as a weapon, how to rebuild yourself with strength, how to provoke without saying a word, and how to live with purpose. These are not comforting phrases, they are acts of power. Because regret is not provoked by begging, it's provoked by becoming someone impossible to replace. 1. Accept and take control. Acceptance is not surrender, it is regaining the power you gave up when you began to resist the inevitable. Most people sink after a breakup because they fight against the facts. They relive conversations, analyze messages, imagine alternate scenarios, and believe that thinking about what happened will change something. But it won't change anything. What hurts is not the loss, but the attachment to the idea that everything should have been different. Acceptance is looking at reality without embellishments, without excuses, and without fear. And only from there can you rise again. Stoicism teaches that we do not suffer from events, but from the interpretation we make of them. It's not the breakup that destroys you, but the refusal to accept it. The more you resist, the more you wear yourself out. Acceptance is not coldness or resignation, it is wisdom. It is the exact moment when you stop looking for culprits, stop justifying the departure, and decide to direct your energy towards yourself. Because as long as you keep focusing your mind on what you can't control, you will continue to lose power. And lost power is regained with direction, not with nostalgia. Acceptance is also about stopping playing the victim. It's about taking responsibility for your role in the story, without blaming yourself, but without evading. It's understanding that even though she made the final decision, you also had a role. And instead of blaming yourself, you choose to learn. Because everything that happens to you has a lesson if you are willing to see it without ego. At that moment, life stops seeming like a punishment and becomes training. When you accept, you start to take control. And control does not mean dominating the other, but dominating yourself. It's deciding that pain will not dictate your actions, that you won't write to her on impulse, that you won't check her social media, that you won't look for signs where there are none. Emotional control is built day by day, with small decisions that seem insignificant, but return you to your center. Every time you choose silence over reaction, you're winning. Every time you choose to move forward instead of lamenting, you're building. Many confuse acceptance with forgetting, but acceptance does not erase, it transforms. The memory remains, but it no longer hurts the same. Because you no longer look at it with the need to understand, but with the maturity of someone who knows it was part of their growth. You stop asking why and start thinking what for. And that simple change of perspective turns loss into purpose. Control manifests when you manage to stay calm while your mind screams for you to act. When you choose to breathe before reacting, to work before claiming, to build before insisting. That serenity is your new form of power. You're not pretending indifference, you're demonstrating mastery. And when you achieve it, everything will change. Because the man who no longer needs to control the other controls his destiny. Acceptance and taking control is not a strategy for her to come back. It's a strategy for you to come back to yourself. Because if she ever comes back, she should not find the same wounded man, but someone transformed. One who understood that losing someone is not a tragedy, but losing oneself is. Acceptance is the first step, the hardest and the most liberating. It's saying, yes, it hurt me, but I'm still standing. And at that moment, the power returns to your hands. Because whoever accepts himself dominates himself. And whoever dominates himself has already won. 2. Make silence your power. Silence is the most underestimated move after a breakup. Most people can't stand it. They need to talk, explain themselves, defend themselves, justify what they did or what they feel. But silence is not weakness, it is mastery. It is the space where the other person begins to hear what your words no longer say. It is the emotional distance that turns absence into presence. When you silence with purpose, the echo of your silence carries more weight than any speech. After a breakup, every impulse pushes you to react, to write, to ask, to provoke a response. But every message sent in desperation confirms to the other person that they still have power over you. Instead, when you choose to be silent, you not only stop the flow of energy outward, but you direct it inward. That's where the transformation begins. Silence is not about ignoring, but about reclaiming emotional authority. It's about looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I no longer need to explain myself. Silence is uncomfortable because it forces the other party to face the void you left. They were expecting your reactions, your attempts to reconnect, your promises. When they don't come, something changes. Curiosity begins, then doubt, then regret. Because authentic silence is not indifference, it is a sign of evolution. You're not punishing, you're demonstrating self-control. You're communicating without words, that you no longer depend on their attention. The Stoics taught that power does not lie in controlling others, but in controlling oneself. To be silent when you could speak is a sign of strength. The emotionally weak man seeks to be understood. The strong one chooses to be misunderstood if it preserves his peace. When you master silence, you begin to master perception. You let time and distance speak for you. Your silence becomes a mirror. It reflects in her what she did not expect to see. Her mind begins to wonder why you're not insisting, why you're no longer available, why your energy has changed. And there, without doing anything, the dynamics are reversed. The one who used to avoid you starts thinking about you. Not out of manipulation, but out of contrast. Because controlled absence has a magnetic power. But for silence to work, it must be accompanied by action. You can't be silent and stay in the same place, staring at the phone. You have to move, grow, improve. Every minute you don't spend talking about her, invest it in yourself. Exercise, read, set goals, redefine your purpose. Silence is the fertile ground where the new version of you is born. As you evolve, she observes, even if she doesn't say it, the change in your energy. That calm that she once confused with coldness transforms into mystery, and mystery always attracts. Remember, silence does not seek punishment, it seeks respect. When you decide not to respond, you're not losing ground. You're establishing invisible boundaries that only the strong can maintain. In a world where everyone screams their pain, the man who is silent and focuses on his growth stands out. Because there is nothing more impactful than seeing someone who suffered but did not break. So save your words for those who truly deserve them. Let your silence be your message, your improvement your response, and your calm your revenge. Because when a man manages to master his impulse to speak, to explain, and to pursue, he not only stops being a slave to the past, but becomes the memory she can't forget. Silence is not emptiness, it is concentrated power. And when you learn to use it, no one has power over you anymore. 3. Rebuild yourself without looking back. After a breakup, the biggest mistake is to live looking in the rearview mirror. trying to understand what went wrong, what you could have done differently, or when they will return. This constant look at the past robs you of the present, drains your energy, and ties you to something that no longer exists. Reconstruction begins when you understand that there is nothing more to analyze, that you no longer need answers, only action. You are not a broken piece waiting to be repaired by someone else. You are a project under construction that now has the opportunity to design itself from scratch. Leaving behind is not forgetting, it is deciding not to live there. The mind will try to drag you back to memories. It will show you images, smells, words, moments that seemed perfect. But don't fool yourself, that no longer exists. What you have today is an empty space that you can fill with discipline, with purpose, with a new version of you. Reconstruction does not begin when you stop feeling, but when you decide to feel without stopping. Many men get lost in trying to prove that they have already overcome someone. They post pictures, show off new companies, pretend happiness. That's not rebuilding, it's acting to provoke a reaction. True rebuilding is doing it in silence, without witnesses, without the need for approval. It is when the motivation no longer comes from, I want them to see what they lost, but from I want to see what I am capable of. Stoicism teaches that the wise man does not wait for the world to change to improve his life. He changes and the world adjusts. Your reconstruction should be like this. Don't wait for her to miss you to start growing. Start now, even if it hurts, even if you still think about her, even if nothing makes sense. Every small action, getting up early, reading, exercising, learning something new, is a declaration of power. You are saying without words, I no longer live in what was, I live in what will be. Rebuilding also involves cleaning your environment. Remove from your life what connects you with the past, messages, photos, objects. Not because you want to erase history, but because you don't want to keep reliving it. Every time you keep a memory, you reinforce an invisible bond with something that has already died. Cut that thread, make room for the new. And don't do it out of pride. Do it out of respect for your future. The process will not be linear. There will be days when you feel invincible and others when you want to go back. In those moments, remember what hurt you was necessary. The pain was the teacher who came to show you that you had stopped valuing yourself, that you were investing in someone who didn't see your value because you had forgotten it yourself. Now you understand, and that understanding is already growth. Rebuilding without looking back is the most silent and powerful act there is. You don't need to announce it, you don't need to prove it. You just do it. And as you move forward, she stays watching, wondering how it is possible that you got up without her help, how you could bloom after she left. That's the regret worth provoking, the one that is born when you see yourself turned into someone who is not seeking revenge, but evolution. So bury the past with dignity, not with resentment. Let your gaze not stay on what you lost, but on what you are building. Because what you are forming now, stone by stone, is called self-respect. And when a man rebuilds firmly, without looking back, the world and she have no choice but to admire him. 4. Provoke without saying a word. The most common mistake after a breakup is trying to demonstrate worth with words, believing that if you explain, if you tell about your change, if you show your evolution, she will understand. But what truly impacts is not said, it's perceived. The most powerful provocation does not come from speaking, but from silence and action. Provoking without saying anything is an art that only men who have learned to control their energy, their presence, and their mystery master. When someone walks away, the last thing they expect is to see you calm. They expect drama, neediness, demonstrations, impulses. But when instead they find serenity, order, and purpose, something inside them becomes unsettled. They don't understand how you keep moving forward without their validation. And that's where the most potent psychological effect begins, curiosity. Because silence creates a void, and the void generates questions. And whoever asks begins to miss. Provoking without saying anything is building a version of yourself that becomes impossible to ignore. Not with false poses or superficial appearances, but with results. Change your routine, improve your body, expand your mind, organize your environment. Not because you want to prove something, but because you are no longer willing to be the same version that lost control. Every improvement you make in silence is a way of communicating. You no longer define me. Stoicism teaches that the wise act with purpose, not for approval. Therefore, when you transform your energy into action and not reaction, you project power. Your calm begins to have more impact than any speech. Your absence becomes a silent presence that weighs. She begins to notice your evolution without you having to say a single word. It's something that is felt. Because authentic change has a language that needs no explanation. Don't underestimate the power of your new energy. Your way of looking, walking, responding, being. Everything communicates. When a woman perceives you in control, when she sees that you are no longer available for emotional games, she begins to face the consequences of her decisions. Not because you attack her, but because now you are a mirror. You reflect the difference between who remains anchored to the past and who has learned to move forward. Provoking without saying anything also means not reacting to attempts at emotional manipulation. She may write to you just to see how you are or to measure if you are still available. Don't fall for it. You are not obligated to respond. Your respectful indifference is worth more than any impulsive response. Every time you choose not to take the bait, you strengthen your inner power. Remember, the one who speaks less controls the emotional frame more. In this process, your goal is not to prove that you are okay. It's to be okay. Because when you truly are, everything in you will reflect it. Confidence is not feigned, it's built. And when it comes from within, it becomes magnetism. She will notice it, even if she doesn't admit it. She will feel that she lost something valuable, not because you say it, but because now your presence has a different frequency. So let your life speak for you. Let your achievements be your words, and your calm, your statement. Don't seek to provoke attention, provoke admiration, and do it effortlessly, because the real attraction lies in independence. When a man stops explaining his value and simply embodies it, he no longer chases, he attracts. And that is the most elegant and powerful provocation there is, the one who no longer needs to be seen to shine. 6. Return to mystery. Nothing is more attractive than the unknown. What is already understood ceases to be interesting, and what becomes predictable loses its value. During the relationship, you probably gave too much. Your emotions, your plans, your thoughts, everything was on the table. She knew when you were happy, when you were down, when you were going to write. There was no room for mystery, and that's where desire dies. If you want to regain power, you need to become unpredictable again, not from manipulation, but from evolution. Mystery is not about hiding, but about becoming more complex, deeper, more reserved with what you once easily gave away. The man who becomes a mystery doesn't have to pretend distance. He naturally projects it because he no longer seeks to be understood. The energy you once invested in demonstrating love now transforms into presence. You become someone not everyone can read, and that psychologically disarms, because the human being fears losing access to what he once controlled. Silence plays in your favor, but change enhances it. Change your routines, your way of speaking, your way of dressing, your environment. Don't do it to impress her, do it because you've grown. When someone who thought they knew you starts to notice a real difference, the mind fills with questions. What is he doing? Why does he look different? Who is by his side? That curiosity is the beginning of regret. Not because you force her to feel it, but because suddenly you become a territory she no longer dominates. The Stoics knew that power lies in not revealing everything. Epictetus said that the wise man conserves his energy, not out of fear, but out of respect for his peace. You don't have to post your steps or count your progress or show everything you do. The real mystery lies in discretion, In an era where everyone exposes their life, the man who chooses silence and reserve becomes an exception. And the exceptional always draws attention. Becoming a mystery does not mean disappearing, but being selective. Speak less, observe more. Don't seek attention, let curiosity find you. Be careful what you share, be careful how you react. When no one can anticipate your moves, you regain control of the narrative. You stop being the predictable character that everyone has an opinion about, and you become the man everyone wants to decipher. This change is not immediate. It requires consistency. You can't be a mystery if you're constantly aware of what she's doing. You have to cut off the need to know, to check her social media, to interpret her silences. The unknown must also apply in your mind. Stop studying her, start studying yourself. Because the real enigma is born when your inner world is more interesting than any story you lost. And when you achieve it, when she notices that she can no longer read you, that you no longer react the same, that you no longer live orbiting her attention, something inside her will change. She will feel that she truly lost you, and that thought, that intrigue, will be your best ally. Because there is no greater power than becoming someone that no one can fully decipher. A mystery is not begged for, it is built. And when you become one, the world begins to spin at your pace. 7. Live with purpose. Losing a relationship doesn't mean losing your direction, but many act as if it were so. They get stranded, directionless, waiting for the past to come back and give them meaning. That's the biggest emotional trap after a breakup, believing that your worth depends on who's by your side. When you live without purpose, you become easy to manipulate, because any attention feels like salvation. But when you define a purpose, you regain control, because your energy stops revolving around someone else and starts moving towards something bigger. Purpose is what separates the average man from the unstoppable man. It's not a fleeting goal, but a clear direction that gives you strength even when the pain tightens. If you don't know what your purpose is, start by observing what makes you feel alive, what challenges you, what demands your improvement. Maybe it's your job, your body, your mind, or a goal you've postponed out of fear or comfort. Focus there. Not to distract yourself from the pain, but to transform it into fuel. When she sees that your life keeps moving forward, not from pride, but from determination, something in her mind will change. Regret doesn't come from the words you say, but from the life you demonstrate. A man with purpose becomes magnetic because he radiates direction, focus, and inner peace. He doesn't seek validation because he already has a mission. And that makes him attractive in a way that no appearance can match. The Stoics taught that everything that happens can serve your growth if you choose to see it that way. The breakup is not a curse, it's a purification. It ripped away the distraction, returned you to solitude, and put you in front of the mirror. Now it's up to you to build something worth looking at. The self-discipline you develop in this process will be the foundation of your new life. Get up early, work on your body, learn something every day, eliminate what doesn't add up. Your purpose doesn't have to impress anyone, it just has to sustain you. Living with purpose also means to stop chasing what doesn't belong to you. You don't need to get back who left, you need to regain the respect you lost for yourself. Every action consistent with your purpose rebuilds your identity. You're no longer the man who begs, but the one who chooses. You're no longer the one who asks for love, but the one who provokes admiration. That transition is what changes the whole dynamic. Because when a man lives for something bigger than a person, he stops being a slave to his emotions. And the funny thing is that when you get to that point, she notices your distance, your focus, your calm. She notices that your energy no longer revolves around her name. And there, regret comes on its own. Not because you seek it, but because the natural law of attraction says that whoever finds himself always generates interest in those who lost him. So make your purpose your revenge. Let your progress be your answer, and your life the proof that nothing and no one can stop you. 8. Set your boundaries. Personal power crumbles when you don't know how to say enough. During the relationship, you probably gave in too much, ignored signs, accepted behaviors that wore you down, and slowly faded away to keep the peace. But the price of not having boundaries is always the same. Loss of respect, first towards yourself and then towards others. If you want to regain control after a breakup, you have to rebuild your boundaries, not as walls of pride, but as borders of dignity. Setting boundaries is not revenge, it's clarity. It's understanding that love is not about enduring everything, but about respecting yourself, even when you love. When someone crosses that line and you allow it, you're teaching them how they can treat you. The problem is that we often confuse love with endurance. We believe that being understanding is giving in, and being patient is keeping quiet. But Stoicism teaches the opposite. Whoever does not respect themselves cannot expect respect from the world. Temperance does not mean passivity. It means knowing when to act, when to step back, and when to keep silent with purpose. Your boundaries are the measure of your worth. If you struggle to say no, it's because you still don't know what you're worth. The day you understand that your energy, your time, and your peace are sacred, you will stop giving them away to those who do not appreciate them. And paradoxically, that's when you regain power. Because respect is not asked for, it is imposed with consistency. Every time you maintain a boundary, you are reinforcing your self-esteem. You're telling yourself, I'm not going to betray myself anymore out of fear of losing someone. After a breakup, setting boundaries is vital. If she comes looking for you again, don't run. If she speaks to you ambiguously, don't fall into the game. If she tries to reopen the bond without real commitment, have the strength to say no. Not out of resentment, but because you've learned what happens when you settle for less than you deserve. A man without boundaries is easy territory to invade. A man with boundaries is impossible to manipulate. And when that happens, respect returns, even from those who once lost it. Boundaries also apply to yourself. Stop checking her social networks, justifying her behavior, feeding the memory with repetitive thoughts. Every time you cross those mental boundaries, you go backwards. Emotional discipline begins by closing the internal doors that tie you to the past. If something takes away your peace, cut off access. You don't need to prove anything by deleting or blocking. You need to do it for your peace of mind, not out of pride. The power that comes from a man who respects himself is unmistakable. He doesn't seek attention, he attracts it. He doesn't ask for validation, he imposes it with his presence. Because whoever sets their boundaries stops being reactive and becomes selective. And that energy, that quiet confidence, is what generates regret in those who once took you for granted. When she sees that she can no longer access you as before, that her words no longer destabilize you, she will understand that she lost something valuable, a man who learned to respect himself. So make it clear with your actions where the access to your energy ends. You don't need to explain it, just live it. Your limit is your border, your shield, your declaration of power. Because when someone can no longer cross you easily, they start to see you differently. And that difference, that new respect, is what marks the true closure of the cycle. Whoever sets their boundaries does not lose, they rise. And when you rise, no one touches you without your permission. Thank you for staying until the end of the video. If you watched the whole thing, comment, I am Stoic, as our secret signal to know that you're a true student of Stoicism. Don't forget to subscribe and give the video a like if you enjoyed it. See you in the next video, and remember, keep cultivating your Stoic mind.